Today, we're going to add two surviving Chinese gunpowder flasks, a large one and a smaller one. Just like the double-barrel percussion cap pistol, both of these were listed on a Chinese second-hand trading platform. So, what are the features of these flasks, and why did I pick them for today's video? Let's dive in. Previously, I came across 4 terms in a Qing Dynasty dictionary: Shani Oktoi, Kwacha, Shumkan, Mialiko, and Kwachai Beli. This roughly translates to primary powder flask, gunpowder flask's cap, and the primary powder flask cap. First, let's focus on the primary powder flask and its cap. Imanchu, Shani Oktoi Kwacha literally translates to primary powder flask, which is very similar to the English phrase. However, Kwachai Beli literally translates to the flask's bowl. At this time, I didn't understand why a bowl would refer to a cap until I saw this Qing Dynasty painting. I realized that it's a type of pressure cap, and the word bowl likely refers to the spring mechanism. Next, Shumkan is actually quite easy to understand. There's an explanation in another Qing dictionary. This describes a small container for storing gunpowder. But why is the gunpowder flask cap called mialiko? Literally, mialiko means measuring container. I always wondered why the ancient used this word for the cap. It wasn't until this antique flask popped up that I finally figured it out. Meanwhile, Mandarin Mention Mantics has a similar piece on their website. We can see that this cap looks exactly like a measuring cylinder. By the way, I noticed that some Japanese gunpowder flasks have a similar design. I'm not entirely sure about the smaller flask though. The seller claimed it's a gunpowder flask as well, but the cap is obviously shorter, and since the sailor mentioned they are a set, I suspect that this might actually be a primary powder flask. The Qing Dictionary and the paintings suggest a primary flask should have a bowl-like spring. However, based on other military illustrations and existing Japanese examples, it seems a pressure cap isn't mandatory, since these Asian firearms shared a developmental history. We can use Japanese flasks as a reference. So I'm guessing this is likely a primary powder flask. Then, is there other possibility besides it being a primary flask? I think it might be a pellet flask. As we know, for a small bore musket, a single round bow isn't the best choice for accuracy. Historically, people often used buck and bow cartridges or just pellets, using the musket like a modern shotgun. This actually reminds me of a book about the traditional Chinese sailing boat on the Yangtze River in the 1940s, where the author happened to mention bird hunters. The book noticed that these hunters preferred using shot pellets, and they specifically used a non-mental shot to avoid damaging the quality of the bird meat. Plus, that smaller measuring cap is definitely better suited for measuring out the pellets, which is much more convenient than loading them by hand. Therefore, considering everything, I believe the large one is a gunpowder flask, while the smaller one is either for primary powder or for storing shot pellets. So that is for today's video. As always, stay safe, take care, and see you.